Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to another podcast about Michigan basketball. At this point, it's pretty clear what we do on this channel. It's Michigan basketball right now, and it's Notre Dame recruiting for football. And it's super exciting if you're a Michigan basketball fan right now. I feel like every week it's getting more and more amped up. We're hyping up as March winds up, and this is just a great time to be a Michigan basketball fan. The title of today's video is basically, should Michigan be ranked number one in the country? And that's a controversial topic, to say the least, because there's an established number one team in college basketball this year. There has been the same team for the entire season, which hasn't happened since, I think, Kentucky in 2015. And, well, the number one team is pretty dominant. It's Gonzaga. Gonzaga is really one of the better teams of all time. I have the Ken Pomeroy college basketball ratings here. You can see Gonzaga has an efficiency rating of plus 36 points, meaning against an average team, they're about 36 points. 36, whatever this metric is, better, which is like one of the best ratings of all time since 2002. Now, Michigan's number two in the country at plus 33.92, which is also one of the best ratings of all time. So these two teams are unbelievably good. Let's get that clear. These two teams are unbelievably good. Gonzaga is led by the four-headed monster of Joel Ayayi, Corey Kispert, Drew Timme, and Jalen Suggs. 4 All-American candidates, 3 Wooden Award candidates, and they're a complete team. Andrew Nebhard's another one of those guys. He transferred there from Florida. He's quite good as well. But I honestly think Michigan has a real claim to the number one ranking. You can see from the KenPom, Gonzaga is rated slightly higher. They have the best offense in the country. They have a better efficiency rating. They're less lucky. And overall, obviously, they're 24-0. Michigan's 18-1. The 5th best offense, 4th best defense, a top 5 team in both metrics, which hasn't been done in the past couple of years. Even Gonzaga, you can see, is 10th in that category on defense. Michigan's top 5 in both. That's really hard to do. And for KenPom to have Michigan rated top 5 in offense and defense shows what a special team this is. For those who don't know, Michigan started the year outside the top 25. Gonzaga started the year ranked first. I think that Michigan was completely overlooked. I think everyone was overlooking Michigan to start the season because they had lost their 2 best players in Xavier Simpson and John Teske. But they've proved to every single person that they are the real deal this year. But let's talk about why I think Michigan has a claim to be ranked ahead of Gonzaga. Because Gonzaga hasn't done anything to mess up. I mean, they've gone undefeated. They haven't lost a game by under single digit or by single digits in who knows how long. Let's actually pull up Gonzaga's schedule here for Gonzaga because they have a pretty impressive resume. But I'm going to note a few flaws in the resume. So as you can see, I'm just pulling it up. And they play in the West Coast Conference. That's the first knock on their resume. They had a really tough non-conference schedule, which has boosted them for sure. Don't get me wrong. Beating Kansas, West Virginia, Iowa, and Virginia in one non-conference slate is great. I mean, that's really impressive. But in the past couple months, the best team they've played has been BYU. And as you can see here, the games haven't been very close for the most part. Although Gonzaga does have a tendency of not playing well in the first half. They did it against Santa Clara. They did it against Pacific in this game. They did it against Pepperdine here. They have a habit of hanging close and then exerting dominance in the second half. That's not that impressive to me. That shows that they are a team that's capable of losing. And I'm not knocking their resume because it's really good. Iowa, West Virginia, Kansas, and Virginia. I'm just saying, over the past 2 months, if you looked at Michigan's schedule against Gonzaga's, Michigan is 10 times more impressive. And I think schedule matters when you're arguing for who should be ranked the highest in the country. Now, obviously, Michigan has a huge knock. Going to Minnesota and losing by 18. Let's go to, as you can see, Gonzaga hasn't really come close to losing, although a couple of games have been somewhat tight. St. Mary's was tight up here. This game was pretty close throughout. And then BYU down here was was not in. It wasn't in Gonzaga's victory for a little while. Same with Pacific here, and same with Pepperdine, right there. Those games were tight enough. And then West Virginia, obviously, this was a close game. Michigan hasn't had too many tight games either, though. Let's pull them up right here. And look, this is all my opinion. Obviously, Gonzaga deserves to be number one in the country. I think that they're the number one team in the country still. I'm just putting Michigan's case for the number one ranking out there because there is a case for it. Sorry. I accidentally clicked on that. And Chromebook's being a little buggy. Let's see if this game's tomorrow night, by the way, yeah. But we're not trying to do that. Okay. Here we go. Look at this. Let's just go through after the loss. So, let's go do the entire schedule. Easy non-conference schedule. Look, Michigan didn't challenge themselves with their non-conference schedule. They did almost lose to Oakland, and they weren't looking like a great team, I would say, up until around Christmas time. I don't think they played super well in any game except for maybe UCF up until December 25th. They took care of business against Nebraska, and that's when I thought, okay, we're 7-0. There's something brewing here. Three really easy victories in a row, and I was really getting excited. And then Michigan walloped Wisconsin before taking that loss to Minnesota. At the loss to Minnesota, at that point, mid-January, I was just hoping Michigan would finish the season strong, would bounce back, and find their way to a top 2 seed for the tournament. They haven't lost since, and they haven't been close to losing since. You could argue that maybe that Ohio State game was in doubt, but Michigan honestly never looked like they were going to lose to me. It was a close game, but Michigan never was in too much trouble. Same with Wisconsin. Michigan in the first half looked bad, but in the second half came roaring back. Beating Iowa by 22 points, that's pretty good. Beating Indiana by 16 at Indiana against a desperate team, that's pretty good. And then beating Maryland by 24 and Purdue by 17, I mean, come on. That's impressive. And both those games were not close. I watched both of them. Michigan has a way of just kind of making games look easy, like stress-free, I call it. They just have so many talented players who do both defense and offense extremely well. Even Hunter Dickinson, the star freshman, is a two-way player. I think every single player on Michigan's rotation, with maybe the exception of Austin Davis, could be considered a two-way player because they can lock up on both sides of the ball. That's tough to beat, especially when the guys are good on defense and offense. Franz Wagner has an NBA-level offensive game, and he's also amazing on defense. Isaiah Livers shoots 50, 40, 90 from the field and can also lock up a great offensive player. Eli Brooks is a decent offensive player, but he's one of the best defensive players in the Big Ten. And then off the bench, Chaundi Brown can get buckets, and he can also lock up teams' top wings. So Michigan is a nightmare, and they're really cohesive. Juwan Howard has them playing at a high level. I would call them the hottest team in college basketball based off of these results. You could call Gonzaga the hottest team in college basketball, but just 2 nights ago, they had a close one against a pretty weak Santa Clara team. That game was in doubt for a long time. Michigan hasn't had a game in doubt since Ohio State, and that was a top 5 team at the time on the road. And Michigan looked super good in that game. I think offensively, Michigan could go pound for pound with Gonzaga, and defensively is better. So that's my argument for Michigan being number 1 in the country. Gonzaga hasn't done anything to lose that ranking. They're not going to lose that ranking. But come tournament time, I wouldn't be shocked to see Michigan pull off what some would consider an upset against Gonzaga. Obviously, anything can happen in the tournament. I'm not saying Michigan's a lock to make it very far, but I do think that they, at the moment, are right there with Gonzaga in terms of being the best team in college basketball. That's going to be all for me today. Thank you guys for watching. Brad just made a video, so go watch that. And yeah, drop a like and hit the subscribe button if you like Michigan basketball and if you like Notre Dame football.